So everyone dies. Huang drops everyone off and says that he'll distract the syndicate. In their final goodbyes, Hei zaps Huang's cigarette and says that it's bad to smoke. Huang fires back with a, "Well, you're going to get fat." Even Yin says goodbye to Huang, giving him a hug. Even though it was usually all business for this small team, they only had each other, and that meant something. Misaki makes a surprise visit at Pandora to see Dr. Schroeder. When she arrives, she finds Eric Nishijima waiting for her. It turns out that he's wanted to speak to her for some time now. He and Schroeder explain the situation with Hell's Gate by referring to the disappearance of Heaven's Gate 5 years earlier. Misaki says that she knows it had something to do with Hei. However, the doctor corrects her, saying that the Messier code belonged to a woman, not a man. In case we haven't put it together thus far in the series, Hei's sister somehow planted her abilities into him, and he's only utilizing a fraction of the power. What happened at Heaven's Gate had something to do with Hei's sister, Bai. More specifically, it had something to do with her ability. Nishijima informs Misaki that the EPR is attempting to repeat whatever happened at Heaven's Gate all those years ago, something Pandora calls the Tokyo explosion. If the explosion matches the same radius as what occurred in South America, it'll wipe out the entire nation of Japan. Pandora doesn't intend to let this happen, so their counterattack is to destroy Hell's Gate altogether. The effect of this will, however, result in the deaths of every contractor. Misaki objects to this, saying that they can't possibly kill all those people. Nishijima says that they have no other choice but to kill thousands in order to save millions. Meanwhile, the EPR has begun fighting with Pandora. Countless contractors have come out of hiding to battle. Wei continues leading Hei, Mao, and Yin to an unofficial subway that can lead them through Hell's Gate. But when they get to the end, Wei decides to fight Hei for the final time. After a bit of back and forth, Hei wins. As his reward, Wei destroys the wall, blocking the pathway to Hell's Gate. Misaki's boss drops in at the Pandora facility to reveal the truth. The Syndicate isn't some small-time crime organization. In fact, Misaki herself has been working for them all along. The Syndicate is one of the most powerful organizations in the world, having infiltrated the intelligence agencies and governments of every great nation. Every government is under the manipulation of the Syndicate, and they use their power to maintain world order. It's here that Misaki is offered to work for them. When the Syndicate finally catches up to Huang, they find he's alone, and he has a surprise waiting for them. In these final moments, Huang watches the stars fall from the sky, representing the deaths of countless contractors. He smirks one last time before the entire area explodes. Inside the Hell's Gate, Yin leads Hei and Mao toward the Spectre. As they approach, Mao says a few words that catch Hei off guard. It seems that Mao disappeared or somehow became trapped in the cat's body, though it's difficult to tell at this point. Finally, Hei and Yin see someone familiar in the distance, a Lolly Amber.
Black. Scorpion.
Hei finally hears the truth from Amber's mouth. She tells him about the origins of the EPR when they began their resistance against the Syndicate. After spying and killing for so long, they finally began to question why they did any of it. Not a single person took initiative to begin the movement. It happened gradually, and Bai was one of them. She was the one to initially discover the Syndicate's plans to erase all contractors. Amber still isn't sure what created the gates or what exactly they mean for humanity, but she believes that contractors represent the beginning of something that will happen 1,000, 10,000, or even 100,000 years from now. Hei asks Amber why she didn't just tell him all of this from the beginning. She tells him that if he knew, he would have tried to escape the Syndicate and died. Back at the Pandora Command Center, we find the staff charging up a giant gun that's going to destroy Hell's Gate. We finally come to understand the importance of the meteor fragment. When combined with Bai's power, which is now Hayes, Hell's Gate will become a neutral zone just like in South America. This is the only way for contractors to live. At this point, Amber reveals to Hay that his sister lives within him, and that he has her power. For the first time in the series, Hay questions if meeting his sister is worth the cost of everyone who lives in Japan. This has been his goal from the beginning, his guiding light throughout the series, to find his sister. But when he finally approaches the threshold, only now does he consider the ramifications of his actions. He can finally see her, but in the process, he could do millions. When Hay refuses to do so, Amber forces the meteor fragment against his chest, and a bright light consumes Hell's Gate and all of Tokyo. Hay finds himself in a dreamlike world where he can once more see the stars, the real stars. He finally meets with Bai, and she confirms that Hay never wanted to live such a bloody dark life. He only did so to protect her. We get a fantastic tribute to all the dead characters that Hay met. They all tell him that he's always been conflicted about his identity between being human and contractor. He's different than the rest. He can be both. And I love this part where Nick helps him off the ground. Though Amber doesn't like this idea, if Hay assumes both identities, life will become harder for him. The Syndicate will be after him for the rest of his life. He'll never get to see the real stars or his sister. Hay hugs Amber, showing affection toward her for the first time. Hay makes his decision to continue living on Earth, to be both human and contractor. He says his final goodbye to everyone. When Hay returns to Earth, Amber is gone. She used her ability one last time and disappeared because of it. When the Saturn ring is about to destroy the Hell's Gate, something interferes. The command center pulls up footage of the Grim Reaper inside the giant gun, changing something from inside. Dr. Schroeder explains that they can no longer fire the weapon because of the Reaper's powers. He then reveals that one of the Reaper's powers is to grant abilities to ordinary human beings. Nishijima punches the doctor, and Misaki's boss, Commander Horai, shows up and shoots Nishijima on behalf of the Syndicate to make a scapegoat for the whole process. Horai opens up to Misaki, explaining to her that the Syndicate will forever rule the world. Misaki reveals that she's been recording the whole conversation, so Horai decides to kill her as well, but the Reaper swoops in and beats Horai's ass. As the Reaper runs away, Misaki calls him Lee, revealing that she knew all along that the Reaper was the boy she called friend. The series ends revealing that contractors and humans alike are still both alive and going about their lives. Some contractors still commit crimes, and the police chase after them. Misaki pays a visit to Hay's apartment to find it empty. She walks around the room and looks out the window as if trying to understand what it was like for him. She notices him walking down the street and chases after him, but when she turns the corner, he's gone. Then we see a specter in the form of Yin. I'm sure many who watch this show have similar criticisms as me. Even though the show built itself up to this climax with Amber, the Gates, and the Syndicate, we're left with as many questions as when we began. This anime does not tie a neat knot at the end to explain all the questions we've accumulated up to this point. We still don't know the origin of the Gates. We don't know how or why contractors were granted their abilities. We still don't know why Hay, Bai, or Amber worked for the Syndicate. Did they have a choice, or were they taken against their will? How did Hay become such a great warrior, and why was Amber considered the first contractor? Why does the meteor fragment enhance Hay's powers? Exactly what were Bai's abilities, and how did she give them to Hay? There are plenty of good questions you can ask that ultimately are not resolved in this anime. I'm not sure if the manga answered them properly, but the show certainly doesn't. While I love this show, I can admit that this ending does not give us the satisfaction it promised. If you're going to give the story a mystery, the audience will expect an answer. It would be similar to clickbaiting a YouTube video without ever addressing the thumbnail in question. I will give the anime this credit. I've seen many shows handle unanswered questions far worse. While we don't get answers to all our questions, we at least resolve where Bai has been all this time, which was the most important aspect of Hei's motivation. Though another problem does arise with this. He now needs a new motivation. What's left now that he's found his sister? Who does he want to protect? This isn't shown or told to us. Ultimately, these lingering questions didn't hurt the point of the show for me. As I said before, and I will continue to say, the reason this show captivates me most is watching Hei try to regain his humanity. My favorite parts were the quieter moments when he interacted with the other characters on a human level. His intimate friendship with Chiaki, connecting with her as another broken, lonely person who had no one else in her life, was particularly touching. The way he saved Mai and comforted her like an older brother was memorable. The moments when he struggled with his inner demons between hating or caring for Carmine, ultimately deciding to help her live, even when it detracted from his objective of finding his sister, were profound. The friendship he developed with Misaki, despite their ideological differences, stood out. His care for Mina, even though she seemed insignificant to him, added depth to his character. The rooftop scene with Nick, where they bonded over their love for stars, was especially poignant. Though fated to be enemies, they were best friends for that short time, both older brothers wanting to make their sister's dreams come true. Hei's repeated efforts to save Yin, ultimately deciding he wouldn't kill her even under orders from the Syndicate, showcased his inner conflict. His misdirected hatred for Amber, who had only ever loved him, manifested in anger toward himself and the world. Despite his fury, Amber always saw the good person in him, someone who was deeply hurting. The friendship with Kenji, which blossomed into something profound, highlighted Kenji's role in making Hei reflect on his true desires, his reason for living, and what or whom he sought to protect. So personally, I'm okay if all the answers weren't completely fleshed out, because that's not what the series was really trying to say. This show is a rare moment in cinema where the emotions do actually trump the logic. This can't be said for most shows that attempt this. Only Darker Than Black could succeed in getting away with this because it held true to the most important questions. I may never be fully satisfied with the conclusion of Hei's arc, but maybe Tensei Okamura never intended to complete it. Maybe he just wanted to create a crazy, interesting world with superpowers, elaborate technology, and small moments of humanity shining through the darkness. That is why I can accept this outcome. I'm conflicted. This miniseries had incredible animation and fight scenes. It also had great character development and an explanation of the world after season 1. Most importantly, it had a lot of slow moments to show the atmosphere and the emotional state of the characters, which is my favorite part of this show. At the same time, it added a lot of things I wish it hadn't. Season 1 had plenty of questions that it hasn't answered yet. Where did the gates come from? How did Amber become the first contractor? Why was Bai the most powerful contractor? And what significance did the meteor fragment hold besides a generic power-up? Unfortunately, Gaiden doesn't answer any of these questions. It only adds to the pile. This might be an unpopular opinion, but the first episode was my favorite. It had just the right amount of action, character development, and depressing atmosphere. It also had the most hope. Hei and Yin are on the run from the Syndicate, trying to escape Japan. The first 2 minutes of the episode featured a succinct and satisfying fight scene that doesn't overstay its welcome. We immediately cut to Hei and Yin preparing to leave the country, pretending to be a couple on their honeymoon. And it's easily the most heartwarming part of this entire show. Yin and Hei are both traumatized by everything that's happened to them, and it's going to take time to heal. We watched them go to the beach, going on walks, eating dinner together, shopping at local stores, like the scene where Hei buys Yin a hat. It's honestly just everything I could possibly ask for in an OVA to this series. I don't want any more pain and trauma. I just want to see two broken people finally take a breath after living a cruel, dark existence. But we can't have nice things. And you know what? I think that's why it's so good. The reason these fleeting moments between Hei and Yin are so satisfying is because Okamura uses these moments sparingly. That's why they mean so much to us. It's not long before the syndicate kidnaps Yin, which leads Hei to hunt them down and save her. But weird things start happening. People are acting against their will, killing themselves, losing their minds, and this is where we get to the part of Gaiden that I don't like. We learn that a prophecy was made around 50 years ago about a being called Izanami, a godlike figure foretold to bring about the end of the world. This person turns out to be Yin. She gradually evolves to the miniseries as someone with a split personality who no longer hesitates to kill. We see her first make a contractor kill himself, and then again when she saves Hei. But near the end of the series, we learn that Zichi wanted to speed up Yin's awakening to bring about a new world, and so he injected her with something that made her unstable, leading her to kill a bunch of innocent contractors. Depression. Walking into Gaiden, I assumed we were going to get some modicum of contentment, and that was an idiotic thought. This miniseries is actually more depressing than the first season, which is hard to top. The first episode was the most hopeful thing we got in this entire show, and the last episode was the most despondent thing we got in this show. Talk about whiplash. But even with the confusing prophecy and Yin randomly becoming a god that would destroy the world, I really loved Gaiden. We saw Yin's true feelings about Hei finally come out, that she loves him. And the same goes for Hei, who did everything besides explicitly state that he loved her, though it went without saying. I was also pleased to see what happened to the remaining members of the Evening Primrose. I'm kinda sad that they all died, since they were actually good guys fighting against the Syndicate, but it was nice nonetheless to see where they went after Season 1. I'm only slightly apprehensive about going into Season 2 of Darker Than Black. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I'm pretty sure Hei was in bad shape. Like, super depressed. I'm also skeptical that all the growing questions from Season 1 and Gaiden will be answered, which is not a good storytelling mechanic. Though if it's anything like the past media, I'll still treasure the quiet moments Hei has with other characters. After all, that's really what this show is about.